coming up on Understand Work. Going back to what you were saying earlier about growing their network and hopping on calls, can you maybe just lay out a couple of a little tactics or a little bit like how you can do this? Welcome to the show. And so why don't you just kind of tell me about yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Alan, and I've been working in, well, mostly design, but in the tech industry for a while. And my background started in New Zealand when I was working for a very small design. We call it studio in New Zealand. I think it's more agency here in North America. And what I did there was mostly handle all the designs from websites to branding. We had other contractors come in that I would have to manage, but they're about more my age than a bit younger. But still, I had to teach them in terms of like, hey, this is what the client's looking for, this is what the manager's looking for. Moving forward, in my first proper job, I was working in New Zealand government, as I mentioned before, and there I really set up the internal design systems. So we talk about user experience. That's sort of what it was like internally for them. And at the same time, I was managing an intern, which was a really unique experience. It's my first time, obviously, at that point. And from there, I progressed on to working in startups. So first startup was in educational technology, and the second one was cybersecurity. Now, cybersecurity, I also had to manage a team. Granted, they weren't, juniors. There were some junior engineers. So there was experience there. Now, what I focus on more is actually the coaching side of my business, where, I help individuals get their voice heard. As I've learned from my own experience as an introvert, it's very hard for us to speak up, and it's very hard for us to talk about our work. And so I'm providing that platform for them, or a program coaching system that helps them do that.
That coaching that I've sort of got introduced to you with, well, two things that resonate with. One, I've always been more of an introvert than an extrovert. And I
Mhm.
think we talked about this in
Yeah.
beforehand, where it's just like at work, I could handle, because there were parameters to like what needed to be done for the job, I could be like, oh, I can handle these conversations. But then after work, it's like, I want to be quiet. And I think it's important too, because I think working with people, reputation is probably one of the key pillars to your career success.
Mhm.
And impact is also another one. And you can't really grow those if you're not going to speak up for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Um,
have a few stories about that in the government sector.
yeah. And so you can end up with, whatever stage you're at in your career. Um, Oftentimes it's, you need to find ways to have these conversations with your bosses and your colleagues that aren't necessarily like scheduled in or structured, but still like you're expressing what you want and what your boundaries are and what you've been working on and what you think the priorities are for the business and for yourself and all that kind of stuff. And I think, um, I think not just introverts struggle with that, but it's definitely something that's on the mind. Um, with all that, like, so if you were to talk to someone now that was just starting in their career, and what would sort of be the most important thing that you think they should know?
Look, I think where I was back then is very different to where we are now. If you just starting your career, I think given the fact that we have AI now, especially in my industry, and you know that I was in user experience, it's very saturated. What I would recommend is, first thing is, talk to a lot of people. As you mentioned, Joe, it's your reputation is very important. So networking, talking to people um, in your industry, just hopping on a call to pick their brain. I think that is something really important. In fact, there was a couple of young fellows that reached out to me, one from Australia in his 20s, who was looking for the same thing. Granted, he didn't follow through with the consistency and accountability, but when he came to me at the same problem, which is, hey, I'm trying to get into the real estate industry. I don't know how. My suggestion to him was start reaching out to people. Start talking to people about your interests and why you want to get into real estate, right? Show that you're passionate, show you're eager to learn. I think that's what most of the older generation wants to see. And most importantly, I think, as we're moving towards this big shift in content creation with also, again, AI being there, leveraging your branding, your personal brand is very important. And what I mean by that is you don't need to know everything, but you could show your process, right? Show that you're eager to learn, show that you are building something, show people that you are serious about what you're talking about.
Yeah, when you're speaking about that, the term that came to mind was vulnerability.
Mm,
And I think that uh, in the past, I've had to work with people. I think this term gets a little bit dicey
okay.
because I think for sometimes people can think that that means, I want to. It's not about just unloading your what's troubling you or what your problems are. It's kind of figuring out how to be vulnerable kind of with some boundaries so that it can progress things forward. So it's like if I'm gonna if I'm gonna share something with you, uh, it there has to be some sort of intention behind it
Hmm.
to either like move our relationship forward, move our connection forward, or to like help our collaboration or whatever the goal is. Not just to be like, man, I'm having a shitty day and I'm just going to tell Alan all about it. And so that he can be in a poor mindset as well.
Yeah.
Uh, so I think, yeah. So to me, it's like, it's, it's sort of having that vulnerability, like you said, to reach out to people and say, hey, I'm to sort of frame it where it's like, hey, I'm eager and I'm wanting to learn, not
Yeah.
I have this problem. Can you just fix it for me? Or can you just like help me solve it?
Yeah. One of the things that this has always stuck with me. So when I was studying graphic design at uni, one of my lecturers mentioned to me, he said, hey, look, don't ever come to me with problems, come to me with solutions. And that has always stuck with me because when I was working corporate, I would always think about, okay, I'm running into some issue right now. What have I done? What can I show them that I've done so that they can tell me if this is the right direction? And so that has helped me a lot in terms of, again, building my reputation, getting people to understand that I actually do care and that I'm trying. And just by doing that, I think you build a good relationship with whoever the stakeholders are or your managers.
I kind of run into this same thing. Do you think that people have a problem sometimes sharing their solutions because they're afraid they're going to be wrong? And they kind of have the fear of someone saying, no, that's a bad idea,
Mhm.
sort of overrides the willingness to share. And I think that's a huge mistake because especially early in your career, I think the best thing that you could happen is you go to your boss and say, here's the problem.
Yeah,
I have these two ways to solve it. And if your boss says, no, no, both of those are wrong, Joe, here's a good way to solve it. Like that's a great conversation to have.
yeah,
But you kind of have to be willing to sort of put yourself out there a little bit.
yeah. And I think, I mean, we both create content. We're both on X, and I think like the biggest problem that I had as an introvert, just coming out creating content is exactly that. Well, what if I say something stupid? What if I say something that someone's going to jump out and say, you're completely wrong about that? But what you're doing there is you're inviting an opportunity to be better, right? So rather than thinking about, man, I'm going to look stupid or what if I what if I mistakenly say something to hurt someone? Like, no, it's an opportunity for you to learn,
Yeah.
right? Let someone point that out and thank them. In fact, I think it was last month. I was on I was just commenting on X, and I think I said something. There was a typo or something, and someone corrected me, and I just go, "Thank you." Like,
Yeah.
there's nothing more that I need to do there. I don't need to get into an argument. Which, by the way, never get into beef with anyone online. Just thank them and say, "I appreciate that. I didn't know about that. Thank you for the correction," and then just move on. And I think within a work environment, it's the same, especially if you are junior or if you're just starting. You know, seek feedback because that's the most valuable thing you're going to get out of your whole experience to
Yeah.
push you forward.
Yeah. Going back to what you were saying earlier about, and we can frame this around sort of the advice you give to people that are perhaps struggle with this because they're more introverted about growing their network and hopping on calls or building their brand. Can you maybe just lay out a couple of like a little tactics or a little bit like how you can do this?
Mm,
Um, like it's easy. It can feel easy to say to someone that's starting out in like that example of you had of someone who wants to get into real estate. It's just like you need to reach out to people. Okay, but like how do I how do I
yeah.
do that? Like who do I talk to? Where do I start? If you are enjoying this conversation and you would like to participate in a conversation like this, whether for the show or just you need some advice with your career, go to my webpage, joemorton.com, and I have all the resources available for you there for you to either sign up for this show or to get some career coaching to perhaps help you get your promotion, earn some more money, or just gain some more autonomy in your job.
Yeah, I think everyone gets stuck there. I would say, look, in the instance of that young man that reached out to me, he lives in, I believe he lived in Sydney. Um, so I told him, like, what is your area? What's the area that you're living in right now? Are there real estate agencies there? Yes. Great. Are they on LinkedIn? Yes. Go check them. Find who works there. Find a person that you can connect with, right? Maybe they are posting online already and you've commented on that. Maybe you've reacted to it. So comment something, thoughtful, nice, and then reach out to them afterwards. Just say, hey, I read your post about this. I really do enjoy it. I would love to learn more. I'm about to get into the industry. Would love to just pick your brain. Just hop on a coffee chat, virtual coffee chat, or hey, if they're close by, just grab a coffee. There's nothing more that you can do there. Yeah. So that would be tip number one. Tip number two, I would say if you can only do it online, then start going to online events, right? So there are online meetups that you can go to. There's online networking events you can go to. There are even free webinars that you can attend where you can just connect with people, right? And there's a lot of that on LinkedIn. We don't see it as much on X with people going live, but there is online meetup groups. You can look them up on, I think, Eventbrite as well. So check those out. There's nothing to lose, by the way. You just hop on. If you don't resonate with anyone, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
There's the next one you can go to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Going back to the the your first tip there, um, I think the sort of the objection that sort of bubbles up is just like, well, what if I get rejected
Mm.
in my reach outs or whatever? Um, again, is that just like you just kind of have to, you know, you got to just take some no's with the yeses and sort of move on? Or even like, do you think about like, okay, how did you approach this person and how
Mm.
did you how did you make the ask?
Yeah. Look, you are going to always run into rejections, right? I mean, we learned that from just being at school, asking girls out on dates. You're going to get
Sure,
rejected, right?
sure.
And so it's not about building up tough skin. It's knowing that it's just a part of the process. And you are going to get more no's than yeses, but you just need one yes, right? That might take a while. But the more you do it, the easier it gets, right? Remember, there was a guy on TED Talk who basically went around every day for 100 days to ask girls out, and he got rejected pretty much every day. And then he got one yes, and that was enough.
Yeah.
But because of all the no's, he didn't really care after that.
When I talk to people, and it's like, I'm sort of, what people want is success, and that can come in many, like what people think about as success can look different in a lot of ways. But I think one constant to success is it's opportunity. It's
Mhm.
all like, so more opportunity is always going to lead to more success. And that's kind of what you're saying, where it's like, so if all you're doing is giving yourself more more shots, you're gonna be more successful. There's just
Yeah.
it's that's just the way it works. It's just the way it's just the way it's gonna end up. And so whatever, as long as you're positioning yourself for opportunity, I think
Yeah.
you can almost guarantee that you're moving towards being more successful.
Hmm. And I mean, in the instance of again, the young man that wanted to get into real estate, the reason why he didn't follow through was exactly that. At first, he got a lot of yeses, but then people started to not reply. And I think that's very disheartening, right? Because you put in this effort. So then what do you do then? You keep going because, to your point, Joe, you keep creating opportunities for yourself. Like we look at the greatest basketball players, right? Stephen Curry be one of the best shooters ever. I can imagine that man has taken a lot more shots than anyone else
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
get to where he is, right? And so it's the same thing. We just have to take more shots. And yes, some shots might look like they're doing really well at the beginning and then fall apart, but that's just a process that you have to learn.
There's two things I think about there. One is, and this comes up a lot when I talk to my clients,
Hmm.
is what is the pain point? And so many people they know what it is and they
Yeah.
try to work around it. And so if what you need is to like talk to more people to get more um to learn more, you can't, every day you got to be like, okay, well, I call it the elephant, right? Like
Okay.
that's so whatever, whenever you're kind of planning, you kind of have the things you're working on, but the elephant's the thing where it's like, that's where I'm most stuck. And I'm
Hmm.
not going to be able to like fix this in like in one go. It's not like I'm going to, that's why people will do things where they'll come in and they'll have a big problem that they're stuck on, and instead of sitting down and taking a bite out of the elephant, they organize their files in their computer, or they clean their office, or
Yeah.
they go and do some other work that makes them feel productive, because it's like, because that one point you've
Yeah.
got this big problem that's painful, but you gotta, like you're saying, it's like, if you've decided that's the thing that's gonna lead you to more opportunity and success, you actually just need to keep hitting that point every single day. Like you can't ignore it. But people build these intricate uh systems of like thinking about things so they can kind of avoid it sometimes. It's you know, and and as a coach, sometimes you just gotta kind of bring back the clarity and be like, look, man,
Yeah.
everything's working for you. You just need to fix this one thing. Just don't ignore just don't ignore this problem.
What came to mind was procrastination, right? We beat around the bush so long. We think, oh, if I just do this thing, like that thing there will just take care of itself. It won't.
Yeah.
You have to do the work. And doing that, it will suck. There is fear attached to that, obviously. And so just gotta have to navigate through that.
That was awesome. And then the other thing is, just in terms of what you're talking about, uh, when I talk to sometimes employees and they're not getting feedback at work, they're not kind of having those conversations.
Mhm.
And I always tell them, just like, if like what you said, if you go in there with like an eagerness and wanting to learn, there's nothing that most bosses like more than talking about their business, especially if they're an owner or CEO. They love it.
Yeah.
And so it's, if you're showing enthusiasm and a willingness to learn, they're gonna, most of them are just gonna like just give you so much.
Yeah.
Like they're just excited to about what they do, and they're just gonna want to share it. And so if you do run into someone that's being a bit closed and is not sharing with you, it's just take it as like, um that's fine. That's where they're at. Maybe their level of enthusiasm isn't gonna serve me, so I'm gonna just go and find someone else. It's like you don't want to be you don't want to have to be trying to like drag it out of somebody. You want to go
Yeah.
find someone that's got the enthusiasm to share with you, because
Mhm.
they love their business so much.
Yeah. Here's one thing I learned from networking is that people love talking about themselves.
Oh yeah.
So ask a lot of questions,
Yeah.
right? There's no such thing as stupid questions. Just ask it, right? And you'll you'll be surprised how much people are willing to tell you.
100%. agree. Most people are thinking about themselves. So if you, I think as an introvert, actually, that type of thinking helps me a lot because
Yeah.
I most, what I have to tell myself often is just like, no one's thinking about me.
No.
And even if, even if you go and ask them for something and they give you a bit of a, maybe they're a little short with you or they're a little weird with you, even that, you're just like, that's probably not about me. They're probably thinking about something that's going on at home or some other problem that's on their mind or
Yep.
totally something else. People aren't thinking about me. They're thinking about themselves and their own problems.
I mean, it usually is the case. And one of the best ways to prove that, and I think you probably had the same experience as me, is that when you're posting online, you think, oh shit, like people are gonna be looking at me. Everyone's gonna be seeing this. No one's paying attention. No one is,
Yeah.
right? There might be a few birds just watching. That's it. A handful of them. So yeah, we have to get out of our heads on that one.
Yeah. The one thing for new employees or people that are new to anything, a new career, whatever, is the sort of, you got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And I think that's like that's sort of what we've been discussing for most of this
Yeah.
right now is just like, and that is the being uncomfortable is kind of the price.
Yeah.
Um, and if you're not paying that price, you're probably not going to get what you want at the end. It's just like, that's just how it, just is kind of how it goes. And if you can develop a mindset or some strategy to sort of deal with that uncomfortableness, you're going to be, again, you're just going to get more opportunities and find more success.
I agree with that. I think the more that you stay in comfort, the more it's going to actually hinder your progress and reaching to wherever you want to go. And we see that a lot with, I mean, people that we interact with on a daily basis, right? So yes, I would say lean into the discomfort as much as you can, and make sure whatever you're doing it's sustainable for you. And that's the main
Mm-hmm.
thing I say to all my clients is
Mm-hmm.
if we're creating content, if we're doing engagement, make sure it's sustainable, because the moment you try to go, 1 to 1,000, it's going to break, right? So make sure it's sustainable for you.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Awesome. Alan, thank you so much. I think
Richard,
we'll sort of end it there. That was like a great point to finish on.
amazing.
And yeah, thanks for coming on the show.
No worries,
Enjoy the
Joe.
rest of your day,
You too.
and we'll talk soon.
Awesome, dude. Thanks.
Bye.
Yeah.